People ask me, at your age, what are you most afraid of? I tell them, it's not an illness, it's not death, it's the smallest sound in the house, the soft scrape of a wooden chair against the floor, and then no one sits down. This house used to be so loud I prayed for one peaceful evening. Now I have all the quiet in the world, and I would trade every bit of it just to hear the front door open. I used to think I was a good father. I did everything a man knew how to do. But there was one thing I never saw coming, and it changed the way I live these final years of my life. My name is James. I'm 79 years old. I live in a small town outside of Arizona. Where are you hearing my story from? Please leave a comment below the video to let me know. For nearly 40 years, I drove long-haul trucks, running routes from Texas all the way up to Michigan. I got used to the smell of diesel more than the smell of cologne. I got used to sleeping in a truck cab more than in my own bed. Some years I spent Christmas at a highway rest stop, eating cold fried chicken and calling home to tell my kids good night. I missed a few school plays, a few weekend ball games, but I never missed a tuition payment. I never let the refrigerator go empty. Like most men of my generation, I believe love meant working yourself to the bone so your family wouldn't have to worry. I figured when I finally slowed down, when I retired, we'd make up for lost time. There was something important I didn't understand. Now my children are all successful. One works in tech out in California. One lives in Florida. My youngest moved to New York after getting married. They're busy, I understand that. In this country, everyone is chasing something. Deadlines, mortgage payments, insurance bills, college funds for their own kids. They still send gifts on Father's Day. I get texts that say, "Love you, Dad." Sometimes a quick phone call squeezed in between meetings. There's no anger, no arguments. Just distance. I keep my nicest shirt hanging in the closet, just in case there's a family gathering. I still grill on holidays, even if I end up sitting alone at the head of the table. Some evenings, when my phone lights up and it's only a sales notification, I realize something. The hardest thing isn't being rejected. It's no longer being needed. One winter evening, I was sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but I couldn't tell you what was playing. I picked up my phone and almost dialed my oldest son. I've had his number memorized for 20 years. My finger just hovered there. I asked myself, what would I even say? You doing okay? When are you coming home? Or the same old line, I just wanted to hear your voice. And for the first time in my life, I heard myself really heard the waiting in my own voice. A man who once drove through snowstorms across state lines was now afraid of one thing, the silence after the last ring. So I set the phone down. I looked around the house and realized something. I hadn't really been living here. I had been standing guard at the door. That night, I decided something had to change. The next morning, I made my coffee and sat there thinking for a long time. There's a truth men of my generation don't like to admit. Sometimes we use our sadness to hold people close. I don't blame my children. But every time I called with that heavy tone in my voice, every time I said, "I miss you so much," I knew I was placing a little weight on their shoulders. Not big, not dramatic, but enough to make them feel like they owed me something. And when love starts to feel like duty, it isn't light anymore. I realized that if I kept calling just to hear someone answer, I was teaching them that their father didn't have a life of his own, that I only existed when they remembered me. That wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to me either. But don't think that decision was easy. At night, when the house goes quiet, the old questions still come back. Did I work too much? Did I believe paying the bills was enough? Did I forget to say, "I love you" often enough? I remember those evenings when the kids were little. I'd come home late smelling like engine oil. They were already asleep. I'd kiss their foreheads in the dark and tell myself, one day they'll understand. Maybe I got some things wrong. Maybe I was missing something. But I also know this: I didn't abandon them. I stayed. I did the best I could with what I knew back then. And if I keep punishing myself for the past, I'm stealing the years I still have left. I don't grow gardens, never being good with flowers. But after that night, I did something else. I pulled my old fishing boat out of the shed. It had been sitting there almost 10 years, covered in dust and cobwebs. I wiped down every board, replaced the anchor rope, polished the peeling paint. While I worked, I realized I had let my life stay tied up too long at a dock where no one was coming in anymore. So I started rowing out to the lake every morning. I joined the Veterans Club in town. I taught the neighbor's boy how to change a motorcycle spark plug. I learned how to cook the chili my wife used to love. I didn't do those things to get my children's attention. I did them for the first time in years. I wanted to steer my own boat. A few weeks later, I noticed I wasn't checking my phone every 10 minutes anymore. Some mornings I'd head to the lake before the sun was fully up, and by noon I'd suddenly realized there hadn't been a single call that day. The chair at the head of the table is still there, but it's no longer the center of the room. The center now is the story I'm telling the fellows down at the dock, the fish I'm proud of catching, the smell of chili simmering on the stove. I started sleeping deeper. Laughing is easier, breathing lighter. And the strangest thing is this: when I stopped waiting, my heart didn't feel empty anymore. It was filled up with small, real things. I'm not living to be called anymore. I'm living because I'm still here. I'll be honest with you. At this age, we don't need fairy tales. Maybe one day when I stop calling first, the phone will ring. One of my children will say, "Dad, how have you been?" And when they come to visit, they'll find a man who is living, not bitter, not blaming, just living. And maybe that will make them want to stay a little longer. But there's another possibility. They may stay busy, stay far away, remember me only now and then. And if that's how it goes, I'll still be all right. Because I've learned that love can't be forced and presence can't be negotiated. I open the door when they come. But I don't stand in the doorway anymore. If you're sitting in a quiet house like mine, hearing the clock tick louder than any voice, I want to tell you this. We've done our part. We stayed up late. We worked until our backs ached. We loved the only way we knew how. And now the rest of our days aren't meant for waiting.